Hello, and welcome to Godscast. I'm Stephen Attewell,
And I'm Chris Holcomb.
and we're here to talk about issue 8 of The Wicked and the Divine. All about Dionysus, the dance floor that walks like a man.
This is it's really hard to take him seriously with advertising like that.
Yeah, well, I don't know. Not huge in the raver scene, so I don't know how out of step this is. So it's interesting that before Laura goes in, she sort of um, is talking with Inanna again.
So Inanna seems to be the only one who's on her side.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say.
And everyone else seems to know things that she doesn't. So now I'm starting to question Inanna's motives and what Inanna actually knows. Because
Okay.
it's the story is clearly trying to get me to trust Inanna, but I'm kind of been burned by that before because we kind of trusted
Ah,
Lucy and she turned out to be crap. Not crap, but have
yeah.
her own thing
Well,
going on.
yeah, certainly, you know, uh, feet of clay. So yeah. Um. So the interesting bit about their conversation is this thing about Laura making the decision to commune with a god for the first time after what happened with Lucifer. And like Inanna's sort of saying like, yeah, I know you haven't come to my gigs, and I'm like not going to give you a hard time about that because I'm a nice person. But this, Dionysus, like, and this is getting into the whole theory of like Apollonian and Dionysian attitudes, mentalities, art. That like going Dionysian is good for you. It will. What's the phrase? It'll loosen you up.
I've heard open your
Oh, sorry.
mind
Loosen.
more.
Yeah. And so we meet Dionysus, and what'd you think of him?
So he's new on the scene. The YOLO shirt is really weird, but he does give the sense of a walking, not a dance floor, but a hallucinogen of some kind. Not that I've ever
Yeah,
taken
I mean
any
they
or
definitely
know
talk
what that
about that.
feels like, but
Right.
yeah, the name implies drunken revelry, but this has sort of evolved into our new world of chemical highs instead of.
Yeah.
And I did have a classics professor who said that one of the theories of Apollo's priestesses and why they got visions was because they were over a fault line of some kind, and there was gas that would fuck their
Yeah.
heads.
Yep.
So
That they were all basically high on
exactly.
fumes.
But yeah, he's like a walking hit of Molly, I guess.
Yeah. Well, he's described in about a page from now. He says, "Think South American frog."
Yeah.
So definitely on the sort of um, that end of the spectrum. The things I thought were kind of interesting about the way that he uses his powers is he can hive mind people, like that. He's inside the
Hmm.
bouncer's head. He can open like pocket dimensions, and he uses it for coat storage.
Yes, that's a more interesting use of that power. I mean, I guess they'd also be really great for moving.
Uh, yeah. Other thing that I thought was interesting is so Laura says you were one of the Morgans fans, right? And he says, "Why the past tense? I still am. I was front row in the station when you were doing your what did Baphomet call it? Shakespeare in the Dark." So, like, remember we were talking about like where do the gods come from and do they know each other and what's the significance of this? Here is another data point where like Dionysus was a fan and um was at the same performance that Laura was.
And this has to be disheartening for Laura in that she's closer to the gods than any other mortal, I would say, and
Mm-hmm.
has now has a reputation as the God Whisperer. There's only one slot left,
Yes.
unless you can take a dead slot. But yeah, I'm not sure about that.
Yeah. So, the other thing that I thought kind of drawing lines between the different gods, I did think that there's an interesting similarity between um, Baphomet. Excuse me. Sorry, interesting similarity between Dio and Inanna, where Inanna is all about like asking permission for
Mm-hmm.
hugs, and Dio's thing is, you get to join the party, you decide when you want to bail. You know, it's all about like, you know, being super careful of everyone's sort of boundaries and like wanting to kind of give people a safe experience.
Yeah, but at the same time, you can't really prepare for an experience like this.
Yeah, and speaking of which, the 2-page spread with the numbers that confused the fuck out of me. Well, I was
Did
having
it? It was pretty clear to me. It's I live in California where weed is legal, and you're like, is it working? Is it working? I think it. Nope, not
it
yet.
was more
Oh,
that I
there it
wasn't
is.
clear how to read the
So
2-page spread. Like I started going down the left hand
ah,
side, and I'm like, no, wait, you need to go across. But then it goes 1 2, and then 1 2 3, and then 1 2 3 4, and then 2 3 4, which is like it's. I mean, I get what that they're like going for this sort of out of time sequence thing. But like it took me a while to wrap my head around it.
mm-hmm. So we're now in a godly rave where hopped up on star matter, I guess.
Yep. I do think it's interesting. Speaking of like various forms of drugs, that Dio suggests that not that you can't smoke, but that you shouldn't smoke because it's all about the death urge. What does he call it? It's a banker tax. So
Right.
he's very much in favor of the sort of hallucinogens, but he thinks that cigarettes are for losers.
I didn't get that vibe. I got more of a like we're taking drugs. Let's it's causing problems on your body. Let's be more efficient in the pleasure we get out of them.
Yeah, well, just I think it's also like when we were talking about like Laura being sort of in a depressive, nihilistic state.
Mm-hmm.
It's like cigarettes. Like ultimately, they are a mild stimulant, and you know have all kinds of negative health repercussions. And here's a drug that's a euphoric, and it's all about this sort of big emotional energy. And I mean, I don't know whether Dio leaves flashbacks in your brain, but anyway, so we then see like what it's like to be in this sort of hive-minded rave, and we see other gods have shown up to party, and everyone beings looks
Are
kind of
they here,
very.
or is this a hallucination, or is this a mind meld? I'm not entirely sure.
It's a good question. Um, so we then learn a little bit um, uh, about Laura's parents.
Yeah, her parents used to be musicians.
Yeah, so her mom was a raver, and her dad played guitar in the '90s and didn't get very far. Um, and then Laura kind of has a little bit of like momentary freak out, um, and then runs into Cassandra, and you'll notice like once again Cassandra's
Right.
not feeling it. Like, she's standing off from the side. She's saying this is going to go all Orpheus in the Maenads. Now Laura says something really interesting, which she says you're full of star too, which could just be random druggy talk. But remember, there was the whole bit earlier on Um, when she was saying that her head was
Yeah,
full of
but it
plasma.
also, what it suggests to me is that maybe Cassandra's the 12th.
Aha.
So,
Interesting guess.
I mean,
Um,
and then
yeah.
of course, if that's true, is Cassandra putting her off? Or is she some kind of subversive god? Is she supposed to be Cassandra who would tell the truth and no one believed her? Yeah, I'll stop
Aha.
thinking about that too much.
Yeah. So, okay. Um, so there's, you know, a lot of sharing going on, some unanticipated sharing where Laura's talking about like her supposed flaky powers of cigarette lighting. And then on this sort of blue page, like Laura and Ball go off to dance. Woden likes to watch because he's a creepy motherfucker. And you see Cassandra there saying, "There's no music. What are you all fucking dancing to?"
Having been an extra on a set, knowing that like when you're filming there is no music because they need to pick up the mics. So
Yeah, that would be confusing.
that's why if you're ever watching TV and there's a nightclub or a dance scene, you'll notice that no one is dancing on the same beats.
Because there is no beat.
Exactly.
Um, so yeah, what do you think about the sort of um, interpolation of Woden's thing with Cassandra?
I it I don't trust Woden, so I'm wondering what he's up to.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. What did you get from it? As I'm not sure what else I'm supposed to draw from this.
Well, I just that he's watching her like in addition to just watching the dance floor in a kind of
Oh,
voyeuristic
you're
way,
right. I
that
didn't
he's like
I didn't notice
specifically
that
watching
his
her.
helmet he is pointed right at Cassandra. Okay, maybe
Yeah, and that's kind of
I'm
nice
now
little
dug
detail.
in. I think Cassandra's the 12th god. So,
Okay. So then we get this next sequence where Laura bumps into Sakmet and they decide to grind on one another. Amaterasu feels boring because she's straight. And then on the green page, Woden comes up and makes Cassandra an offer. And we don't exactly see what that's about, but she seems to be into it, despite um, her earlier
and
protestation.
I kind of like Cassandra and I want her to be someone I can trust. I don't want to see her become a Valkyrie, but that feels a little too predictable. Like, I'm just hoping he offered her an exclusive or something.
Yeah. Aha. Interesting. So, then Baphomet shows up, and right as the party sort of dies down a little bit, or it's I guess they're like changing over discs or something.
Yeah, it's the water break.
Yeah. So like Laura's clearly trying to like figure out what the whole finger snap cigarette situation is all about. And Baphomet doesn't really give her the answer that she was hoping for, I don't think. But he explains that he can talk to the dead, but they don't talk back.
Right.
And he says that Morgan lied about his alibi,
Which
which is
puts
interesting.
2, maybe 4 more suspects on our radar.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm still liking Woden for this. Woden.
Sorry, you're still liking. Ah, okay. And then we get an interesting bit where it looks like
Mm-hmm.
um, uh, the Morgan sort of notices them talking to one another and gets angry because like she
Right.
shifts from gentle Annie to Bobbed, and like Bobbed is clearly the like violent part of her personality. Um, so that's something to keep an eye on. And then we get Ball talking to Laura about what happened with Brunhilde / Carrie. And what Ball thinks about Minerva, who is clearly pissed off that she has to stay indoors.
So is this a mind meld going on, or is this Ball relaying information? Because
I got the sense that this is like they're having a conversation on the dance floor. So it's the sort of thing where like you're shouting into one
yeah,
another's
but
ears.
how do we get this Minerva panel? Is that because Minerva
Oh, that's a good
is
question. Yeah, I don't know. It could be like it could be just him remembering this. It could be some sort of mind
because
meld thing.
that's what made me question, like, are any of them here? I mean, we know Dio is here,
Well, I mean, we
and
do get that.
and Baphomet is here, but
Yeah, and that crowd sequence, like when the powers sort of dim down for a second, does suggest that there are people in a I what is this, like some sort of disused urban warehouse. Um,
and how much of this is she hallucinating? Because all the gods seem to have, I guess with the exception of Woden, they all seem to be kind of painted differently than they are normally on the page. Mm-hmm.
yeah, they certainly like at
So
various
I
times
just get
they
the
sort of
strong
stand out
feeling
from the
that I
crowd.
can't
Like they've
trust
got their own
Laura's perspective
colors
here
going on.
about the drugs and which gods she's talking to.
Okay. Okay. So yeah. So then Ball storms off when Inanna shows up. Um. Because they used to be dating, and then um,
Which is quite a pairing.
Inanna slept
I
with
could ship it if
Lucifer.
they would ever been in a scene together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, it's kind of interesting where he says, uh, Laura says, "I'm a little surprised, Ball and guys," and he says, "Guy is a small
Mm-hmm.
word, but I guess he saw me like that too. I was his gateway. I took him to the underworld, which that's very much the Inanna myth. I took him everywhere." And then we see like a flashback to him sleeping with Lucifer.
Which is another thing that makes me distrust Inanna.
And this
So
is the whole bit where Lucifer says you're a nice person, but it doesn't mean you're a good one.
that's fair.
Yeah. Well, it definitely, you get the sense that he's a little bit short-sighted, maybe. That he assumes that other people see the world the way that he does without sort of checking in ahead of time. And then Dio shows up to, um, get the party started again,
Mm-hmm.
get the beat going, and we get more of his his worldview about like what this is all about and what it means to be a god. And where the interesting thing, I guess, thinking back to Inanna's thing was all about sort of being a god as self-expression. And for
Mm-hmm.
Dio, it's all about um, sort of helping other people. It's sort of an outward. It's less about yourself. It's more about everyone else. And he seems to be leaning hard into that thing about like, we're only here for so long, and our mission is to make everyone happy for a night, and that's not a small thing. And then you get this like really
I'm
weird
glad I'm
part
not the
where
only
drugs
one.
start to go into like overload. This is always the part in like Easy Rider or 2001: Space Odyssey where I start to lose a little bit of patience with hallucinogenics. Um, but it is interesting where he says, "It's not a small thing to make each other's lives better. That's all we can do. The end is coming faster than we something."
Mm-hmm.
And that's where like I think your question about like how much of this is hallucinating, who is she actually talking to, is kind of interesting because it seems to be suggesting that there's like a mind meld between all of the gods, or at least that Laura's experiencing that way, where it's like she's talking to all of them at once.
And Cassandra isn't here.
Yeah, and she's sort of like a little bit what's the right word? A little bit removed. Like it's like she's hearing something over her shoulder.
But she's juxtaposed in this pantheon here with 6 other gods. There's definitely some meaning here that I could make a million guesses about.
Yeah. Or yeah. I gotta say I'm not particularly sure myself. And then the party ends and Laura's outside and she has her coat.
And it's what?
And she's been
4 days later?
Not 4 days. No.
I don't remember what day she went to the party.
Yeah, let me look real quick. So so it's 2 a.m. I think she's basically been going for 24 hours. Which, that's another impressive use of powers, because I don't think normally anyone could actually rave for 24 hours straight without, like...
It depends on what drugs you're taking, so...
Yeah, but I mean, just dancing, like, even if there were no drugs involved, right?
Yeah,
if you just had to dance for 24 hours straight, you'd be pretty physically exhausted.
Alright, so, he doesn't sleep.
Yes, and he's never alone in his own head.
So...
Which kind of raises an interesting question. Like, Laura sees him as the best of them, because he's making people happy and he's happy himself, but this kind of raises the issue of, like, what are the costs of that? Like, when you give over everything to the fans, right? Because that's what this whole arc is about.
I don't have answer to that. I am so in the dark here.
What do you lose?
So, the thing I'm stuck on is when he says, I don't sleep and his eyes are red.
Yeah.
Do the gods need sleep? It feels like that's one of those little fringe benefits that should come with it.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, but the red eyes suggest that takes something out of him.
He doesn't say, I don't need to sleep. He says, I don't sleep. And the red eyes... Yeah. Although, his pupils flash back to black, so, like, it seems like he's sort of, like, on or off. And then we get the sort of, like, after party, going home on the bus, and, like, she's trying to decide, like, is she really this, like, horrible fangirl, or is she something else? And then we get, like, this action shot where Ball shows up in his electric car.
Yeah,
looking all cool,
so...
lightning bolts and shit.
Ball is a lightning god.
Decides to give her a ride.
And this is the second time he's said that he can follow a social media post to exact specificity.
Yeah.
I only know this because I've seen X-Men Origins Wolverine, but there was an X-Man called Bolt.
Oh, I see.
And
is that connected with his godhood? I actually hadn't thought about that.
His power was he could communicate with machines. So part of me wonders is, like, does he have the finesse and precision to be able to data mine? And so... Well, it's stalking her on social media, but, like, how does he know which bus line she's on?
Or is he just stalking her on social media?
Yeah, but the location, when you, like, it's going to give you an approximate area. It's not going to give you, like, within 5 meters like a GPS.
I guess because he said that she has location.
I mean, I don't think it's true because this seems to be a shock to you, so clearly this doesn't come up, but that would be the god power I want, is to be able to communicate with machines and make them do what I want.
Hadn't thought of that. So, yeah, so...
I mean, that's how data is transmitted, so why the heck not?
Yeah, okay, I could get that, and maybe, you know, if he's a lightning god, then electricals in general are his thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, and then I should say on this last page, because it's meant a little bit ambiguously.
So we have 11.
Phrased a little bit ambiguously. But,
11 out of 12.
They go have sex.
And my money's still on Cassandra as the 12th.
And that is issue 8.
Yeah, Unspoiled the Vampire Slayer. You guys heard me say it.
Gotcha. Okay, so we are done with episode 8. I have a few things that I want to talk about in the after. So do you want to plug your stuff? Okie doke. So I'll give you a 10 count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So, once again, Chris is scarily on target. Cassandra is, in fact, the 12th god. Although the interesting thing is, like, the way that it seems to be... And this is where, in Volume 2, I get really fascinated with time and how events are sequencing. So, right after Prometheus comes up and Woden is saved, right, he knows that Laura and Cassandra are working together. And he immediately moves to have Cassandra be made one of the gods so that he can help control the investigation, because the truth is, the two fans that made the assassination attempt were people that David Blake knew and in fact probably set up to do the assassination in order to provoke Lucifer into an action where Ananke could legitimately take off the head. And this is, like, very clearly he wants to make Cassandra a god because that way he can mislead the investigation, and so it only shows up what he wants to show up. The other interesting thing, you know, that this sort of sets up is, like, how much attention is Ananke paying to Loris herself. So that's something we'll have to keep our eye on for the future. And in the meantime, if you want to find more of my writing, you can look for me at raceforitheironthrone.wordpress.com or .tumblr.com, or look for me at Stephen Attewell on Twitter. So thank you very much. Bye.
Hey, thanks for watching the previous video from Graphic Policy Television. Just by watching, you help support our site. Thank you so much. Now, if you're watching these videos, you probably care about geeky things like movies, television, comic books, toys, games, video games, you name it. You can go and subscribe right now to our YouTube channel to stay in touch and catch all the new videos, or check out our website at graphicpolicy.com. There's a nice link on this end of the video. But as always, thank you for watching. Keep on rocking and keep it geeky.